understood how life worked. And they would put time frame on my emotions. They would say, Andrew, it's been 1 year. Why are you still sad? Andrew, it's been 1 year. Why do you still miss your dad? And that hurt because I wasn't aware of myself and confident enough in myself to say, I love my dad. I will always miss my dad, as I can now 8 years later after his passing. At that time, I was thinking, what is wrong with me? I'm going to be grieving forever, and I don't like this because apparently, according to these few people, I should be done grieving. So it was very tough to try to filter what was coming in from the outside world and what was happening on the inside of me. So I then applied the pressure on myself to think, oh my God, by month 6, I should have been done crying by now, and by year 1, I should not be sad anymore, and my father should just be a memory, and I shouldn't even get sad or hurt when I think of him. So now I am completely broken and damaged, and that feeling of having no value and no worth was amplified and intensified by the fact that now I thought I was doing something improperly. And it's very tough to believe in yourself and believe you can come out on top and know what you're capable of. And I look out and I see smiling faces, I see some tired faces, but I know it's Friday. And I believe in all of you. I know all of you will kick butt in life and be incredibly successful because I can look out and I see you have that passion and that drive. But you have to remember, if life gets hard, you can't give up and you have to keep going, because I can stand up here and praise you and tell you I know you will be successful and kick butt and believe in you. But if you don't believe in yourself, then it's no point of me telling you how much I believe in you, because I felt if I didn't have faith and confidence and belief in me, then everything I was doing was no point. Because in the end of the day, I was the one that had to look in the mirror. I was the one that had to live with myself. And I could try to make everyone else in the world believe in me, but I had no faith in me that I was going to get through, that I was going to be successful, that grieving in my father's death and my mom's sickness wasn't going to be all that was my life was made up to. And I had to have belief that people would like me for more than just pity. I was afraid people would be my pity friends because my father was sick or passed, and they felt obligated to hang out with me instead of wanting to hang out with me. So there was a lot of conflict and interest, and there was a lot of tension and turmoil inside and on the outside that I had to filter. And then I slowly started to discover ways to help me be able to function every day. Because I told you I had social anxiety, and that was difficult, and that made me feel like I was no good. And it made me feel sad, and it just made everything I was going through even more impactful. My mom and I fell into financial hard times. I recall one day we couldn't even get out of the Providence Place Mall because we didn't have $1 to our name to get out of the parking garage. So there was a lot going on that I had to sift through and figure out how to come out on top and how to believe in myself that I can do this. And as I said, there is no timeline. And I was lost for very many years trying to find that happiness that I was seeking and trying to find that happiness that I once had and was reaching for. And by trying to find that, I was starting to do little experiments with myself and my emotions. For example, after my dad died, I would be in college, I was a sophomore. I would sit in class, and something about the day would just make me miss him, whether it was the air, something I read, or just thought of him, or I thought I saw him. And I would have those moments where I would just tear up, and I would either leave class and go to the bathroom and have a breakdown. I would just skip class and not go because I was too uncertain of how class would make me feel, and I didn't want to be in that social setting. And I discovered by wearing sunglasses, I actually have the ability to get teary-eyed and cry in class with no one being able to see. And that all of a sudden gave me belief that I could start making strides in my life, to start bettering myself. And I isolated that feeling of having sadness and being able to cry, and I isolated that, and I found a solution. It still didn't fix my sadness or make my sadness go away, but it was one step forward to being able to comprehend what I was going through and understand myself. So when I looked like a fool. I started wearing sunglasses everywhere I went, just because I felt comfortable in them. And that's kind of how I started to discover myself, by being lost and looking for solutions and figuring out what emotion triggers what emotion. I remember I walked out of that Pixar movie, Ratatouille. I saw it at the movie theaters, and something in that made me feel uncomfortable and sad. And I was with my friends, and I had to listen to them bust my chops after, and they didn't understand why I walked out. They said, it's a kid movie made for kids. What could you be feeling? And it's impossible to tell somebody that hasn't felt something or been in your shoes how you feel, and that adds to the stress and that adds to the grief. Because if you have people that are in your life that you like respect and love, but they don't understand you and understand what you're going through, it's very tough for you to try to relate to them. So I used to try to bury my grief and bury my sadness and wear a fake smile on my face to make not myself feel better, but to make other people around me feel better. Because at that point, the people around me, I thought, were the ones I needed to feel better about myself. And all the time I needed to learn about myself, to discover myself and my surroundings. And as I talked about trying to find that happy place that I so desperately wanted to get to, I was also dwelling on the past and my happy spot in the past, and thinking if I could go back to age 16, age 17, before my father got sick, and if I could go back with the knowledge I have now at 20, I could go back and say those things to my father. I could go back and hug him one last time. I could go back and tell him stories I wanted to. I could go back and get answers to questions I've had about him that I still don't have, because now my mom and my dad are gone, and you don't realize how much you'll miss, or what will be missed, or how that void will fill in your body and in your mind, and what you'll think about after they're gone until they're already gone. And so I was dwelling on the past, and I was so dead set on trying to think about my regrets in the past, and so dead set on trying to get to some happy spot I made up in the future, that I wasn't really paying attention to the now. And it wasn't until my mom got diagnosed that it really altered my perception of how life was. And I took those pains of the past that I used to dwell on, the regret that I never did with my father, and I applied that to my mom. So I shifted. I was still focusing on things that I regret, but instead I was finding a solution to them, just as much like me finding a solution to tearing up and getting emotional in public. I started using my past as a building block. So I would start asking my mom questions I had. I would start looking for answers. I would just start having things that would make me have no regret. So if she passed away, there would be no regret. I could look back and be like, I did everything I possibly could, because I knew how it was to have regret, and I did not want to experience that again. And because I was a little more open with myself and understood myself and knew my limitations, I was able to go out there and approach my mom and ask her hard-hitting questions and have open talks about her passing away and my path after, which aren't easy, but they get easier the more comfortable you get with yourself and the more aware of yourself of, I can pull my body and pull my emotions this far before they break and before I have a breakdown. And it's a comfort thing to be able to understand what you're able to do. And who here has ever heard the expression, everything happens for a reason? Good, good. It's a very common expression, and I experienced that a lot during my early phases of grieving. As I told you, people projected and told me by year one I shouldn't be sad, I shouldn't be feeling this emotion or that emotion. I was also running into people saying this cliche expression, everything happens for a reason. And to me, it was very frustrating, because people would explain my father's passing in simple terms, saying everything happens for a reason. And I understood the words that came out of their mouth, and I understood that I'm sure everything does happen for a reason, and it's supposed to maybe make me feel better. But it made me feel even worse, because now I'm looking for that reason, and I have these people who put a time frame on me now also say everything happened for a reason. But they couldn't back up what that reason was, because they weren't in my shoes. And I then wanted to go out and discover what actually was happening and what was the reason my father passed away. So I started to look at it from a different perspective. And I viewed grieving as that, just changing your perspective and viewing it from a different light to be able to open yourself up. And once you view something in one light, you can't go back to the way you were, because now you've opened yourself up.